What's going on, people? My people, welcome to WTLB. This is broadcast Transform Your Radio Connect PE Mix Show. DJ Potential. We're gonna be talking with Eyez today, straight out of the San Francisco Bay Area. So, pop singer, she got some stuff going on. She's nominated for a few awards in all, and she got a brand new track that she's gonna be talking about, and much, much more, and some other things. So, do not go anywhere. Stay where you are. Stay locked in. Turn it up a little bit louder, and we'll be right back on the Kinetic PE Mix Show with your host, DJ Potential. All right, we back after that short intro. And once again, shout out to everybody out there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, everybody in the Bay Area, of course, and as well as across the United States and overseas. We got Eyez with us. What's going on, sweetheart?
Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So they heard me introduce you a little bit, but in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Well, I'm a singer pianist, of course, from the San Francisco Bay Area. I sing and play the piano. I do a little bit of acting. Yeah, kind of happy to be here. Have some new music out. I've been doing some shows. So yeah, I've been having fun.
Okay, it looks like it, and I'm a big fan of the San Francisco area. Having been there before. Alcatraz.
Oh
You
yeah.
got the best Chinatown in the United States.
Okay.
So and then the famous basement clubs. I mean, you come from a good area, so I know you're bringing something good. How long have you been doing what you've been doing?
Oh, since I was little, since I was officially when I was 3. So even though I come from a musical family, I was discovered very young in San Francisco by a reality star, and she wanted me to take acting lessons with her, and she wanted to represent me, etc. So since then I've continued my music and acting.
Now, is that a secret, or can we shout out who that reality star is?
I don't remember her name. She was famous from a show called Lingo, I believe in the 70s or 80s. And I know that show was still going on in the 90s. And I do know that she works behind the scenes today. I do not know her name. I was very young. And people in my family, they only know her name like if they see it, like, or if they see her face, like, oh, that's her. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Shout out to the show Lingo. I'm very familiar with it. So and I
Oh,
know a couple
okay.
people out there. May be familiar with it as well. So thank God she found you though. So uh, since you've been doing what you're doing, a lot of times people have been inspired, to by other artists or other actors out there. Was there any different inspirations or influences that got you, to say, hey, you know what, this is what I want to do.
Well, I will say when I was little, my aunt, I knew I wanted to be a singer because she's a singer, and one day she was leaving the house, and I asked her, well, where is she going? Because she had a split in her skirt, and then I was like, where's she getting ready? She's like, I'm gonna go sing. I'm like, oh, where? At a concert. I was like, um, well, what are you singing? She said opera, and I was like, oh my god! I just got chills, and I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then I said, can I go too? She said no, and then it broke my heart in the hallway. So yeah, there's lots of famous people I can name, but I mean, there's never been a time where I didn't know I was going to be a singer, um, or at least participating in the arts. So,
Mhm.
um, but if there was a time, that time was the biggest time where I knew I wanted to I wanted to sing at a concert. I wanted to be an opera singer, those types of things. So,
Yeah. Now what I notice about your music, and speaking of and I'm hearing how grandma didn't let you go with her, And sometimes it's for a reason. Maybe grandma was like, thinking about some stuff that like maybe she didn't want your little ears to hear about. And when I hear your music, it's really got a nice tune to it. And like, it's really something you can like repeat and like really like go and vibe to, when you're at the club or something, and maybe like amongst your homegirls, homeboys, and it's got a lot of sex appeal into it. You put a lot of
Oh, thank you.
sexiness into it,
Thank you.
and a lot of music. Sometimes if you're away from that, what kind of like brought you into like especially with busy, with like you say, hey, this is what I want to write about. Was it something you kind of experienced or
Okay,
you
so
know?
I'm not a hip hop artist, so I
Uh,
do want to put it out there. So you have to think of the context of how that song was created. So I was singing hooks for a hip hop artist called Mike the Nut in Oakland, California, and I was in a room with just a bunch of male producers, and I was really just trying to
yeah,
act tough. So that's how that song was conceived. That was like they was just acting
yeah,
really arrogant, like giving me vibes. Like I'm like, man, let me get on the let me do something. So I start throwing
right.
stuff down, and then everybody shut up. So that's all that is. So I started it, and then I couldn't finish it because I lost contact with everyone. But after
Yeah,
that, I had to. That's actually one of my favorite songs. So I'm not a hip hop
yeah.
artist, and I do remember having a slight argument about that. Not an, I don't want to say argument, but a slight little arrogant
Hmm.
thing back. Maybe if the situation hadn't been so intimidating, the song would have just came out more naturally. But I was really kind of forcing it, like trying to be tough. So, as the song developed, like I did my rap to it.
Yeah.
As soon as I went home, I made that rap, and I feel like it's a good way to introduce me that rap at the end. So, but in the studio, I was making it clear I'm not a hip hop artist. I'm not a rap artist. This is a pop song, and it is. But at the same time, I'm actually glad that I never released it prior, or maybe that's why I didn't get far because I probably would have said some things that would have been offensive towards the hip hop
Hmm.
community. I mean, I don't care what if something I say does offend somebody, but there would have been some things that I would have said that would have been just straight up disrespectful. And I am a fan of hip hop, so knowing that now, I think that that's probably why it's a better time for me to release this song. So, but it is a demo. I never finished the song. That song has a long history. I started at one studio, lost contact. I tried to finish it somewhere else. It just that studio went out of business. I had to finish it in the garage, and I never wanted to release it because my voice catch in the beginning of the song, and I
Hmm.
never finished it. So I released the demo. That is actually the demo version of the song. I do not have the files to finish it. So I just released it. Everybody seems to love that song.
Yeah.
So um, so I just released it, and it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Thank God it's a digital age where I don't have to explain, but I am explaining.
Yeah, but it's definitely working out, and I like the story behind it. So like every
Oh,
song has a
thanks.
story, and like some songs don't have like much of a story, and like and with you like adding that extra spin to it, it really gives like you as an artist so much more character too, and it lets you know that like, hey,
Oh yeah.
so yeah,
And also too, like that's also kind of what I was going through at the time. Everybody was bothering me, like all these dudes. Like this one guy, he literally like almost got hit by a car trying to talk to me, and I wasn't interested. And it was like, dang,
wow,
I was happy, but at the same time, for your own personal safety, I do live right around the corner. You don't have to go through all
right,
your,
right,
you know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
So like people was always trying to talk to me. So that had to do with it too. But when, like I said, though, as far as the music production and the composition of the music part, the keys and everything, that was
Mhm.
just me trying to be tough. I used a harpsichord because TLC no scrubs. That's why I shout out Left Eye. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So I was just
yeah.
doing that to just show that I was tough. I mean, I already know I'm good, but I was just trying to be, tough.
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, I like it. I like it. So like tell us more about this award. How did this come about? And how like because you got like like I said you got character to you, and you really multidimensional. And most breakout artists who's just on the verge to stepping into emerging don't have like extra talent that they bring in.
Okay. So yeah. I don't know exactly what I'm nominated for yet, but I kind of want to say it's probably busy, and I did a guest appearance in Stop Motion Marvels as Friday, and so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
happy. Yeah. So and people have been asking me about it lately, and then so when I asked the production, I did tell them, let me know if you want, if you have any other scenes for Friday. I'll be more than
Mhm.
happy to. And then actually, he just contacted me and was like, he wants me to come in. So I'll be reprising my role as Friday very soon.
Oh yeah, that's dope. So like, man, I'm now I got to go back and check that out now. And check it out closely. So
Thank
like,
you.
so this acting, this acting link that you like started to like, what was that something that like kind of like it was like synonymous to the music, or as you start like doing the music,
Yeah.
like somewhere down the line you say, okay,
Yeah,
maybe I can do acting too.
it's always kind of been like that for me because
Hmm.
when you sing, you're acting. So you're singing
Right.
somebody else's song, you're singing their experiences, so you're acting. So yes, but I've also had acting lessons as well and music lessons at the same time at a very pivotal part of my life, which is like my early childhood, so like 3 years old. I'm playing
Hmm.
piano, singing, and acting and dancing. So I was doing all of those arts, and I'm very happy that I got to grow up that way because what else was there? But anyway,
Yeah.
uh, but so yes, it's kind of synonymous to me. So like sometimes when people get shocked, like it's
Hmm.
almost it used to be very offensive when people like for example when they say you write your own music. Like I'm like, yeah, I write my own music. No, you don't. Like, yes, I do. Like that's considered normal where I come from. So and acting
Yeah.
and being a singer, that's normal. Singing and dancing,
Yeah,
that's normal.
Cali. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like some people they think that that's abnormal. Like you can't do both. You can't sing and
Mm,
play the piano. Like why can't you? So it's like, I used to get very offended, by that. You said
right.
Cali, and some of these people were in California who were very shocked. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
you can't
I'm
be a
shocked to hear
singer.
that.
Why can't? Well, I was very offended. Someone was
Yeah.
like, "You can't be a singer and a dancer." I'm like, "Don't you like Michael Jackson?" Like, but I
He
didn't
did,
say
yeah.
that. I didn't say that. But
Right.
those types of things were very offensive at one time. But
Hmm.
sometimes people, you just have to realize people just don't get it because they're meeting you face to face. So
Yeah.
you're like telling someone what you do, and to them that's like. But if they were to just see what you did, then it would be different. So
Yeah,
I
then
try not
it,
to get offended. Yeah.
yeah, then they'd be blown away then, at that point.
Oh,
You know what I'm
thank
saying? So yeah, definitely, so like yeah, like I said, I'm inspired, and I'm pretty sure like, just to be in this position that you're in right now, it's sort of like, surreal, and as you touch more people, especially young girls, there's a lot of young girls who can, they're so used to being thrown like a certain image and certain and being told like, oh, go do this, go just go twerk, and that'd be enough, but like you telling them like, hey, like I sing, I act, I can do this, I write, I mean, would you embrace like that role of like that leadership role that for young girls,
you. No. You
or
know
that's something you
why?
ain't thought about yet?
You know why? Because the one time I opened up to someone, I won't say who, but it was a behind the scenes person at a photo shoot.
Hmm.
The one time I said how I love being a role model for kids, because kids always used to run up to me, uh,
Right.
particularly because they see me on the internet. And when I talked about that with this person, and because I met her at a children's center where they was fans. They used to ask me to come sing and dance for them in West
Okay.
Oakland. And so, being that I met her there, I was I opened up to her about how much I love the kids and stuff like that. But keep in mind, these kids is from West Oakland. I'm not as bad as
Yeah.
them. And them kids know way more than I know. Them kids
Oh
is
yeah,
in West Oakland.
they doing a lot more than you
Yeah,
is
they
too.
know way more than I do. So
Right.
okay, but I did a pose with holding up the middle finger, and I had like a bottle of alcohol, like and though you can use your imagination, you can take it to mean what you want. I was having fun. I was being creative. I wasn't trying to be derogatory, but while I was doing, she was like, "Isn't that a bad example for the kids?" I was like, "Ooh, I'm not gonna tell nobody that no more." So because now I know the kind of nonsense type of pressure that goes with it, I would have to say no. Because
Yeah,
it's like I was
it's
being
right.
creative. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a fine line. When you start saying, yeah, I'm a robot with kids, and then like people start like combing through like different things you're doing, and like, oh well, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do like what? so
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a lot of pressure. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I always knew as well that like even though like because I started when I was a kid, I always knew that
mm,
like there would have to be some kind of disclaimer. People get afraid by like the
right.
parental advisory stuff, but I've always
Hmm.
had that on my old website. Someone stole it, but I always had it on there simply because even though I was a kid myself, some of the stuff I went through was very adult. So I kind of
Right. Right.
always knew that. Like all my songs don't have profanity, but some of them do, and it's not done in a way just to do it. It's just because that's just how I was expressing myself in those situations. So I've always known like kids. It's like kids can like you, but
Mm,
as far as going too far, I don't. It's more so my life and what I've been through and how I'm expressing it that can be
yeah.
taken as offensive maybe or like adult or explicit. So,
Well, with the way today's world is, I mean, everybody's offended by a lot of stuff, so it's really hard not to
yeah.
offend anybody
Oh
now
yeah.
nowadays. And I applaud you for just like standing in your truth,
Aw,
standing in
thank
being who
you.
you are. So what's a typical day like for you? What are you doing? Outside of the music and outside of maybe the movies. Like what's a normal day like for you?
Oh no, you don't want to know. I have a
Yeah.
crush. I
Uh
have a
oh.
crush.
Uh
So I
oh.
actually try to stay busy so I won't think
Okay.
about him.
Okay.
I have a crush and I think about him too much and I annoy a couple of people. Like I
Can we
had a
put it out there?
huh? Oh no,
Can-
because he's in the industry. He's in the industry, so I don't want to, But at
okay.
the same time, like
Yeah.
the last time I talked about him, like my
Right.
friend, she looked at me like, and she's continued talking
Yeah.
about something else. Like so,
Yeah.
I have a crush, and I think I spend pretty much all my
Right.
day thinking about him. Like even when I'm working, he's in the back of my
Yeah.
mind. So you know.
Yeah. So that probably motivates you harder. Like, hey, like I got to get to the Grammys or something.
Yeah, and that's another
Yeah.
thing too. Like I met him, uh,
Oh.
and he wasn't like. Well, no, I can't say that. I can't say
Yeah.
that. He's an industry person. He's way more successful than me, and that's kind of. I don't want to say that's embarrassing, but I don't. I want to make sure in my career I ain't got nothing to sneeze at. So in
Right. Right.
case, so when he does call me back, you know.
Are you ready? You ready?
Yeah.
You can handle it. You can handle what's all
Yeah.
gonna come. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah. Word up. Okay. So like give us some advice out there, Dan, for like someone who got a crush out there, like like so like so if somebody watching right now or listening right now, what advice would you give them, for somebody who got a crush?
You know what? My advice would not be to the one who has the crush.
Okay.
My advice would be to someone who doesn't even realize they have a crush, just
Mm.
return your phone calls.
Oh,
Return
okay.
phone calls, even if they're not talking to you about romance, even if they're just talking
Okay.
about friend stuff or business. Just
Yeah.
ask somebody out to eat, especially if you're a
Okay.
man, like, or a guy or a boy. Like,
Right.
ask if a girl keeps calling you about business. Say, why don't we discuss this over lunch? Just say that, because
Yeah.
this person might like you, and you just don't know it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Man.
like, he doesn't. I don't. He doesn't know, and that's fine. I'm talking way too much about this right now. I'm talking way
No,
too
no,
much.
you helping me out. Now I'm thinking about how many opportunities I probably missed now.
Yes, because you don't know, this person could be thinking
Right.
about you every day. Like, because
Yeah.
me, I mean, I don't want to put all my business out there, but
Hmm.
like, I think about him a lot, and it's like I have called him, and he
Okay.
never called me back, and I was like, oh man. And then I called him back like a long time after the first time, and
Right.
when I did call him, like, he was like, well, what? Like, it was that vibe. Like, is that all you want to
Mm.
say? Like, well, I'm just trying to put
Yeah.
something out there, keep it going, and maybe we can talk
Right.
later. And then when it comes up, but you know, just if you don't have a crush, if you're not in love or
Mhm.
you're not in a relationship, but people keep calling you, return those calls and take them out to lunch. As a business lunch, man, find a way to get your
Right.
taxes, a tax write off for it,
Yeah.
because it's business, but allow it. Just ask something personal on the lunch date, not to be prying or anything, but like, well, what is your
Mhm.
favorite color? Stuff like that, because
Right.
they probably like you, and I can say, as the crushee or the crusher, like,
Right.
if he would do that, that would make things so much easier for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, that's good advice. That's an insider. Like, oh man.
Yes. Yep,
You
that's
didn't
the
drop
first
you didn't
one.
drop some jewels today. So like, yeah,
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah. So like, other than like just like what we just mentioned about the nominee, um, and just the busy song. You got Go For It. Uh, I definitely got to check that out, and we're going to get that one on the radio in heavy rotation. Um, if someone wanted to get to know you as an artist, and do you have a particular song that like you'll point them in direction of, or do you have an upcoming project like it's going to be like kind of more like hey, this is me, this is more of like what I do.
I would say, I have an intro called Diamond Tears.
Hmm.
That song is like an introduction to who Eyes is. The
Okay.
song that is to follow up after that is called All Eyes on Me. There is
All right.
no like releasable version of that. I have an early version of it that I never got to finish. But that's the life of an independent artist. We put all of our heart into stuff, and you know, all sorts of drama can happen at the studio. In this case, I have no problem spilling tea. Like, in this case, there was just like a jealous wife, and I'm gonna put it out there to the public. He was
Hmm.
cheating on you, but it wasn't with me. I was
Okay.
a yeah, I was a little kid. Like, like, you
Yeah.
jealous of your husband because I'm at the studio with him, but we actually had really good business started. I was a teenager and everything, but it's like,
Hmm.
um, we had a good business relationship. Literally, nothing like that. And he
Right.
was wanted to give me lessons, music production lessons as well, because we were trading off. I had some things that could help him. He had things that could help me. But he was also a platinum selling producer from
Hmm.
Oakland, in East Oakland. I lived in East Oakland. He lived in East Oakland, and we were getting down in the studio. Not like that, but like, me
Yeah.
doing my music. There were just some songs that I would never release or want anybody to hear, because that was him trying to get to know me and what he
Right.
thought. But my song "All Eyes on Me" is exactly what I wanted to do. And I
Hmm.
will say, because I was so young, I kind of handled things a little bad. I'm not talking about with the wife thing, but he had other
Yeah.
people come in to listen to me. And back then, I was so used to recording music on my own, and I growing up with musicians, I hear a lot of horror stories about people listening to their
Mhm.
session and stealing it and then putting it on their own song. So I really didn't like some guy coming into the studio. However, now it wouldn't be that big of a deal for me. And I actually feel kind of bad because that guy came in there and said, "Oh, this girl recording her demo," and I got offended. And I was like, "This isn't a demo. This is a real song." So once again, I wasn't wrong.
Right.
Wasn't wrong to be offended, but at the same time, it's good to have people like that in your studio because they see you working, even if they don't know who you are. They buzzing around, like, and then if they ever see you again, oh, that's that girl that was in the studio. So they already know, you're a singer, and you didn't tell them, you didn't put in a underhanded way tell them to get out of my session. You know what I'm saying?
I know that right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was right in my feelings, but at the same time, he never came back, and it's just one of those things. I'm trying to record, and you on your cell phone talk about some girl in the studio like recording a demo. So
Yeah. Man, people go through so much, like especially in studios. Like, man, I heard many different stories, and like a lot of them came from like just the female side of it. So like,
yeah.
yeah, you're definitely brave and you're definitely resilient.
Aw,
And
thanks.
so thank you so much. Any last shout outs or if no shout outs, you want to tell us where we can find the music, how we can get in touch with you and whatnot.
Well, I'd like to shout out some of my fellow nominees: Jack Frost, the Easy 500 Beats. They're some nice artists, a hip hop artist and an R&B act. They're both, from the Bay Area. They're going to be at the award ceremony on August 6th, and I'm excited to see them. And as far as my music, I have a link tree. So linktree.com/ Miss Eyes, MSEYEZ. You could get my official website there, which is itseyes.com, but my official YouTube channel, which is Eyes Pop Music, my Twitter. On my Instagram, where I'm most popular, is Instagram.com/Miss Eyes, MSEYEZ. And my link
Okay.
tree is there. So that if you want to like actually like pictures and try to be interactive with me, there. And to be honest with you, no matter where you follow me, send me your email address because I have an active emailing list. And
Okay.
if you're really interested in trying to keep contact with me or knowing what I'm up to, that's the best way. And I also have a bands in town, but that's a new emailing list, so I don't really
Mhm.
use it as often. But I've been using my current email blast for like the past several years. So and that's the
Okay.
best way to keep in contact. Yeah.
That's dope. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And those who are listening, those who are watching, we're gonna have those links and those plugs in the episode description at the bottom or the right. However you are watching or listening, you'll find those right there. And if you're still getting lost in the sauce, I don't know how. That means you just might need to go back to school. But we'll help even the slow bus out. So just reach out to me directly and we'll send that to you directly and get you connected with Miss Eyes, who's just a beautiful person who's doing some incredible work and who's on the way up. And you definitely want to be a part of what she's got going on, support her and all that she's doing and all in her endeavors. So with that being said, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share the episode with someone you don't know, as it does help to further the message. Until next time, I'm your host, DJ Potential, on the Kinetic PE Mix Show, WTLB. This is broadcast Transform You Radio, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with eyes straight out of the Bay Area. Let's get it. All right.